right, well,
Tell them I did.
at 5:33, I'd like to call to order the Water Sewer Commissioners meeting. Everyone please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, everybody. All right, let's start right up and go right down the agenda.
Got one set of minutes.
Minutes, yep.
Guys, any questions on this at all, or it's from December 12th?
Nope.
All right, I would like to make a motion to approve the December 12th meeting minute, December 12th, 2023 meeting minutes of the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There, Brooke. All right. So, you wanna go right down the agenda and,
I'm on the right one, you're on the wrong one.
Yeah, you got a turn over.
oh, that, you guys,
Jump
you
ahead
throw
over
me a
here on me.
softball.
I did the same thing.
Superintendent's updates, all right.
All right, I don't have any, so. All right, so we got some good news to
Nice.
start off with. Doesn't usually start off with some good news, so I figured I'd switch things up a little bit. The long and short of it, and I will bear you all of the background on it, but we finally received a letter from DEP to lower the pH.
Yay! Nice.
We're going back to the levels, very close to the levels that we previously operated at, 7.2 to 7.5, not 8, that we were swapped to back in 2017 for reasons that were out of our control. Keep it clean and at that.
Yep.
So, welcome
That's
to this
fantastic.
long process to get to that point. Multiple steps taken behind the scene from Weston and Sampson, from quite a few different people there. Ben and Tara specifically, I can call out for names.
Thank you.
I'm coming up on 3 years, and the whole time I've been on this board, that's been out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not gonna be the end-all, cure-all, because we do have some looming sample results out there, specifically THMs. That the method that's used to calculate those is based on a long-running average. So while we bring the pH down, which we're gonna do slowly over time, so not shock the system,
Yep.
it's gonna take some flushing to get it out of the mains, and obviously some turnover in the tanks to change that water and slowly lower the pH there. So we will be saving on chemical costs. We'll be saving actually on two different ones. The chlorine is a direct correlation to the level of pH, and we were almost using double what we used to use.
Wow.
So
Wow.
by removing
What do you use, a what do you use, KOH?
KOH
KOH?
for the pH.
What's that,
And,
$6 a gallon?
Yeah, the delivery charges are right up there with
Same,
that.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll save money on that chemical, we'll save money on the liquid chlorine bleach, and obviously inadvertently it will lower the THMs in the system. So that combined with the aerator system that we're still in the process of working to implement, it's all in all going to equal better
That's
water
great.
quality.
That's
That's
great
awesome.
news. Yep.
And hopefully simultaneous compliance, which has been very difficult to deal with. So then we'll jump over to
Wow, that is great news.
well 3, give you a quick PFAS update there. This is kind of a lengthy thing going on here, but as you guys know, October 30th, 23, we took well 3 offline. John and myself have been working with the engineers to come up with basically a laundry list of temporary and permanent solutions to the MCL violation, which was 21 over the MCL of 20. The deadline to submit that was actually yesterday. We did get that in. A little bit of back and forth with DEP. We had quite a few meetings with them via Teams with the engineers. Come up with a list of temporary solutions that we wanted to try at well 3, focusing on basically a blend of the distribution of water and the raw water from well 3. Something that they haven't done before. Typically it's blending 2 raw sources together. So our request is unique. It was pushed up to Boston. The initial thought process was to actually basically dump distribution water into the well right above the intake with well 3 running. You know, the Venturi effect would actually essentially pull all that water that was dumped in out, blend it in the main. We treat the finished water with the blended water and take a sample result while it's pumped to waste. Well, they didn't want any part of blending distribution water in the well. But they're not opposed to a secondary plan that we had thought of, which was basically putting a small booster pump inside the station, tapping the water main, running like a 2-inch dedicated line down well 3 to the booster pump, and the booster pump's required so that we can achieve the water going in, because the pressure at well 3 is higher because it's designed is to pump into the distribution system. A little more involved, a little more costly just to prove that this theory is going to work. And we feel pretty heavily that the blend will work, especially because the PFAS levels in the distribution system coming from the other sources are very low. So it won't take much of a blend to get the well 3 below the 20 parts per trillion. It will not solve the potential issue if the MCL gets enforced down at 4, which we may know sometime in March. After speaking with DEP, we also learned that there are 7 new MCLs that are going to be implemented, similar to PFAS, but that's about as much as they would say.
So, hold on. So, I haven't heard this. 7.
Seven.
This is all more PFAS
I believe
related.
it's PFAS related, and they will have also individual MCLs. They wouldn't clarify what they are. They did mention, I believe, and Tara can back me up, that the number would more than likely be under 8. So I don't know if that's
Still in parts per trillion.
parts per trillion, parts per quadrillion, who knows? It was a very quick conversation about that before we changed to something else. But it just shows that we're kind of thinking the right way, that all of these UCMR reports that we do and additional samples that we do are going to lead to other MCLs, and
Yeah.
you know, the ultimate goal is nothing, have 0. So
I don't know how they can ever achieve something like, I don't know. What do they expect water departments to do?
I don't know if I think they expect it. I don't think they fully think through the whole process of how it can be affordable to produce water, basically ultra pure, and then still provide it to the customer. It just,
At a cost that's...
makes
Something
yes.
people can afford.
right. So that, you know, is the concern. We definitely want to spend money investigating if this blend will work. We don't want to basically throw money away just to prove this may or may not work. If something's looming in March, that's going to basically put a snuff
Well,
to
that's
this
just
anyway.
it. In theory, if you blend it, it's gonna bring the number down. It
Yeah.
can't not bring the number down. But
So that's
in
where
3
we're
months,
at.
is it all gonna be off or not, then that's kind of,
What kind of numbers are we talking for the temp solution? We haven't worked those up yet?
Everything is still preliminary, so
Yeah, yeah.
at the water treatment facility right now, there are PFAS and PFOA numbers are between 3, 4, and 5. You know, well below the 20 parts per trillion limit. Bringing any of that water in and blending it with a 20 or a 21, or even a higher number. The highest we had at one time was, I think, a 23. So if you did a 50-50 blend or a 75-25, you'd easily get that number below 20, stay under the MCL, not violate, and be perfectly fine with it. You know, in a normal world where there wasn't a looming change in the MCL, you know, we'd be on top of this right now.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the best cost-effective action to take, which is more than likely going to be a booster pump. A small booster pump like you see on a fire suppression system.
Yeah.
2-inch in, 2-inch out. We can adjust the pressure. My only concern is I don't have a way to control the pressure. You know, they're designed to build pressure and hold a static pressure, not to continuously run. So we're still working through, you know, some control processes just to prove that this is going to work.
Okay.
The system will be pumped to waste during that time whenever we're trying all these methods. Samples will be taken, and 2.5 to 3 weeks before those sample results come back. So it's not like it's a flip the switch and this is going to work.
right.
Once we prove the theory, and then we have the sample results to back up our theory, the engineers will put a stamp on it based on design, fine tune it a little bit, then it gets sent to Boston DEP for review. So we could do all this and still get, you know, shot down in the end. But everything that we've had meetings with and discussed, they kind of are a little bit more welcome to this idea.
Yeah.
You know, there'll be some control scenarios that'll have to be there. You have to have a run signal from the well to initiate the booster pump so that you don't have booster water pumping to the system without the well 3 blend, you know, just some control issues. But I think in the all in all, I think this is a pretty good solution to what we have going on at 3.
Then we're gonna need 3. We're gonna
We
need
definitely
3.
need 3. That's the kind of the next thing I was jumping into here. We did discuss with them that there is a remote chance from an article that I read, we actually asked DEP if there was any truth to it, that there was another water supplier that found that they were actually getting PFAS contaminants from their holding vessels and from their plumbing inside their facility.
Oh, wow.
Everything we use, and I'm sure other towns are the same way, all of our tubing for our chem feed is all Teflon because it doesn't split. It's chemical resistant,
Yeah.
you know, it's flexible, it seals well, and that was the way to go. Well, unfortunately, Teflon is one of the things that you're testing for. Typically, unless it's heated, it doesn't slough into its liquid component. But, you know, the buildings are heated, it's not like it's down at 40 or 50 degrees because chemicals have to stay at a certain temperature.
Yeah, but the heated for Teflon's not like a hot room, it's hundreds of degrees.
Assumably so, yeah. The other issue is the storage tanks that we have for the chemicals there. Some of them are very old, they were with the original buildings. Well 3, oddly enough, the original tank had a crack. We actually had to remove that tank maybe 15 to 17 years ago and replace it with a different style tank
What do you have, what your tanks for?
for the KOH.
Oh.
The KOH.
Oh, you have that at 3?
Mhm.
Oh,
In a contained vessel. So there's a possibility that it could be coming from the material within. So the way to prove that is obviously to take a raw sample, let it run to waste, and then take a treated sample. So we're in the process of doing that. That'll probably happen later this week. Just to eliminate the possibility of any internal contamination at parts per trillion, you look everywhere. So we want to, you know, wipe our hands of.
Yeah, if you don't do that, you could be chasing a couple parts per trillion forever, and you never find
Right,
it.
and spending millions to remove
Yeah.
something that, you know, was created, not actually in the aquifer. Is it a long shot? Probably, but when you're talking about a violation of 1 part over the MCL, it makes a big difference. So we're definitely gonna try that, see if we can rule that out. All that's paperwork and stuff will
Yeah.
be put over to DEP. And then we started talking about what they need from us when we have to put well 3 back online. Knowing that the blend scenario is a good process, it's gonna take time to implement and hopefully get approved. We're gonna need that water before then. What they had said to us, basically, it will require a new public notice to go out because it's a change in operation from the previous PN where we told the residents that we were shutting the well off. This new PN can be a postcard type. It doesn't have to be the actual form that was sent out originally. As long as the postcard has a link to the town websites and possibly the UR code, I believe it is, the scan code, to bring them to the same site, providing information that we would show the other PFAS results from the other wells in town, that they're obviously lower than the 20 parts per trillion, so there's no violation there. Showing our sample results while well 3 was off, because we've continued to sample and the aquifer is actually tested pretty low. And we would supply a water fill station at another one of our sampled locations. So we had talked about that in depth. I think I had mentioned this to you guys. We had, the initial thought was actually at the water treatment facility. It's the best possible water quality, but we had reservations against bringing people into that site. It's not designed to have heavy public access. So after speaking with DEP, explaining our concerns, they said basically anywhere around the entrance would suffice. They know that the water coming from that facility is with a low pH background. So what we're actually looking to do, and we've already started the process, is we're going to dedicate a tap off of the new water main that's in front of the entrance to wells 5 and 6, maybe 500 or 600 feet away from the entrance to the treatment facility. And we're actually gonna build either like a 3-sided lean-to or a small shed, put a stainless steel sink inside there, have a way that obviously the water can drain into basically like a leach basin or something, just full of stone. And you know, the stainless steel sink would be easy to clean, you know, disinfect on a regular basis. And that'll be the source for residents that are concerned.
This is unstaffed, people just,
It's gonna be staffed
oh, it is,
in the
okay.
beginning, recommended by DEP that it's staffed, and the person that will be there will help educate the customers with what is PFAS, why is it there, what is this, and also to make sure that whatever vessels they're bringing to fill, I guess they don't have to be sterile, it's recommended that they're sterile, but we don't want people filling up, you know, soda bottles or, you know, bleach containers, stuff that we've seen before.
Well, especially if it gets to the point where it's not staffed, because then you have no idea.
Right, we want to control it as much as possible, and obviously during the colder weather, we're more concerned about, unfortunately, it being left on or somebody messing around with it. You know, because of the proximity to the road, we wouldn't want to have a flood happen, somebody goes by.
Is there
turns
enough
it on.
area for people to, like, if there's several cars to pull
There's-
over and,
Yeah, it's in front of the town forest area,
Yeah.
so there is a cutout area there where
Yeah.
people can pull over, a lot of people walk their dogs. So that's the best area that we come up with, as close as possible to the treatment plant. Like I said, we know we have the best quality water and the lowest PFAS concentration there.
do we meter that?
We would meter it just for unaccountable water.
Just for our own-
Just for our own knowledge.
Information.
Like I said, in the beginning, it would be manned, and we gotta come up with a schedule for hours of operation. You know, in a perfect world, we'd be there during our normal working hours, but we know that it doesn't meet everybody else's needs.
Right.
So we're probably looking at possibly 1 or 2 late nights during the week, so that obviously people can come after they get out of work, even though our schedule doesn't, you know, align with them. And possibly something at least 1 weekday, you know, a weekend day for 4 hours. You know, to give us access to as much water as people feel that they need. And we'll go from there. I mean, this is only necessary if a well exceeds the PFAS. So there is the possibility we could put all this in, we could go back and resample well 3, and because it's been off for so long, that we could see continuous rounds under the 20 parts per trillion, with or without the blend being in place, and this wouldn't be required. So this is kind of a backup plan. It could all change if these new MCLs come out, or if the MCL is lowered to an unachievable level, and then we'll deal with that as it comes. But for now, this is the best action plan that we have prior to an actual filtration facility,
Yep.
which we do, Tara's gonna talk about a little bit
So-
later. We have quite a bit lined up for that.
I can only see that fraught with problems. It should be probably under a street light, there probably should be a camera on it. I mean, you need power and, you know,
There is-
vandalism, it
yeah.
would probably be vandalizing in a nanosecond.
There is a list of concerns that go along with it. Unfortunately, the requirements set in place by DEP trump most of those, and it's upon us to solve those problems.
So has anybody else done this yet? Or are we the guinea pig?
Other communities have filling locations. Most of them are at a facility that was designed for traffic. Others have used filtration machines, similar to the Blue Drop vending machine that was used. Those are 1.5 to 2 years out to have one specifically built for your system, not to mention the cost that's involved. So this is the quickest method that we can implement, still provide people with town water that's below the MCL and meet the criteria of DEP.
So I have done water fountains at parks,
Mhm.
which is a similar thing. I mean, we have fill stations and doggy bowls and all that other crap. So the technology's out there. To make them vandal-proof and everything else proof, but they're probably pricey,
Well, yeah.
I would think.
Well, the Blue Drop machine that we had before was a set amount, a month. The Blue Drop machine for PFAS is, I think, more than double.
Oh, yeah.
More than double to have that machine. I think Easton's got one now, or 2, or
I think they had
something.
2.
I think they've got 2 of them in place now.
Right, very costly.
Yeah.
We did run into one vandalism that happened at the Blue Drop when we had it here at the town hall, and that had lights and cameras and everything on it. It was addressed by asking the police to do routine drive-bys. It's part of their nightly patrol. If if they could assist us with that, it'd be great. No
And that was a
guarantees.
visible,
That one was visible.
that was a visible area too.
Yep. So, I mean, no matter what we
Oh.
do, it's always gonna be subject to some type of incident possibly happening. But we are not allowed just to not do nothing, so.
And this is just a contingency plan too, so, I mean,
Yeah.
this is subject to change anyways.
So,
Well,
so we
hopefully
were
that-
open to options, and we were looking at possibly some type of fill station or something like that that was man-made. Most of those are not designed for the cold weather.
Right, we should have done for winter time.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we're limited with that, and telling Mass DEP that we can't supply water during the winter is just not gonna fly. So, this is the best that we come up with in a short period of time. I know we can work more with the engineers to fine tune a little bit more. As far as a camera, that's something that we definitely could work on. Technology is available, there's a cost to it. But if somebody's determined to vandalize something, it's probably not their first attempt, so they're probably
Yeah.
well-versed at how to get around items like that.
Oh, they wear a hoodie and they
Right.
cover up the disguise. I mean, you know, there's ways around that
Yep.
stuff, unfortunately.
So, I mean, we can only do, and provide, our best effort to provide a solution to the problem. If the rest of the public unfortunately doesn't feel the same way and feel that it should be there and they wanna vandalize it, well, we'll turn around, we'll put it back and do what we can. For the time that it's down or the time it takes to repair it, unfortunately, we may have to look at another location, or it may just not be another location available. So, but we'll work with. the
If we
engineers.
implement that, do we, obviously they have to show that they're a Norton resident to,
It wasn't required in the past. The amount of water that's typically gathered from those locations is not that significant. I think it would be more of a controlled event if it is staffed than if it was just wide
Yeah.
open. We did run into a few random vanfuls that would show up at the other
Yeah.
facility filling up the 5-gallon containers so that they could take it back to the office and not have to pay a rental fee for the month.
Right.
So, there is that
Well-
is there, but hopefully this will be used for the correct purposes. So that's where we are with that, work in progress. I'll jump over to well 1. I think it was the last meeting, or maybe the meeting before that, I'm kind of losing track of time, that I mentioned we were able to fast track the well cleaning process there. Just kind of fell in line
Yep.
with the person that we use. That was cleaned, and we were just waiting on a brand new pump. That pump was in and installed, I believe, 2 or 3 days after the meeting. And 3 or 4 days after that, we had a rolling surge and power outage in town. It took out
Yeah.
the flow meter there. And that's just the way it works. So that was taken offline immediately after that, because we had no operational controls of the chem feed. And thankfully, we actually had some spare parts that were kicking around for the old flow meter that goes inside the pipe. It looks like a blade, the fiberglass blade that goes in. So we reached out to the tech who used to install them, who was partially retired, but he come down, installed what we had, got it operational, we were back up in under a week.
Oh, great.
So very, very lucky,
Nice.
low cost repair, just because we had the product in-house, which, who keeps that stuff, but we do. But,
Yeah.
So we got pretty lucky with that. After cleaning, that well is back up and it's been in regular rotation operation, and the manganese levels are well below the .30 action level, where historically that was the well that would exceed
Yeah.
every sample we took.
Yeah.
That's
So
That's
it's
great
it's a
news right
huge
there,
change.
too, yeah.
right? So huge change. It's taken the burden off a little bit by not having well 3. But as we get into the spring and we have to do a flushing program, unfortunately, we need that well.
right.
So, lead and copper. I think John had mentioned at a previous meeting that we were running into difficulties collecting the 60 required residential
Yep.
samples. Despite serious efforts, we were only able to collect 55.
out of
Out of
60
out of
needed?
the 60.
Yeah.
So that automatically triggers an NON of the LCR, which is a Tier 3 violation, which means it has to be reported in the CCR for failure to collect. They consider it, I believe it's a monitoring and reporting violation is the actual technical term for it. On top of that NON and the reporting in the CCR, we're gonna have to revise the lead and copper sampling plan. And we've done that, I think the last was maybe 4 years ago. And we're basically running out of sites that qualify in Norton, mainly because
You're just looking for tier one sites, right?
tier ones and tier twos. And we were running out because of the house filters. So any home with a home filter
Oh, wait.
is exempt from this sampling because it's a treatment technique. So we've had quite a few that we've lost as we've implemented that filter rebate program. We've had quite a few residents that have done things on their own.
You can't sample prior to the filter and still use that?
Believe it or not, the sample's for after that. So the homeowner sample is to
Oh, that's right,
sample
it's
the
from,
water inside
yeah,
the
it's their
house.
sink, you're right,
And
okay.
it's not reflective of the distribution sample. So
Yep.
we've talked to DEP in Lakeville and Boston, asking them for clarification on that, because we don't feel that the filter, a charcoal filter is gonna have any effect on the lead and copper result of the
Right.
plumbing after it sat and had the contact time. They're not willing to budge on that rule, so we lost quite a few houses because of that. And then there's a few other houses that, as more and more people are moving into town, leaving the older houses, the first thing somebody does when they come in is tear it apart down to the studs and do a remodel.
Yeah,
So now all that stuff has been removed, it doesn't qualify. So we're starting to look at other creative options to come up with houses, but, with remodels happening, more and more people doing that, more and more filters going in, and as we progress and replace a lot of the older water mains with the lead goosenecks and iron pipe services, homeowners are getting, updates on what they need to do, replacing their services. And it usually, unfortunately, goes right into a plumbing upgrade inside the house, because
Yeah.
most of those older homes have old pipes in their galvy pipes or.
so
or
what happens
undersized.
in theory if 100% of the homes in Norton changed? What would we do?
Continuously get an NON.
And that would be that, no changing that or anything, just.
Unless they change their, yeah.
Unless their
they change
regulations
rates.
change. Each time we do a treatment change, meaning we put a new well online, a treatment facility or anything like that, that triggers the additional requirement for additional samples. So with everything we have lined up, with knowing that something's gonna happen for a treatment change at well 3 for PFAS, knowing that well 4 is gonna go up for cleaning and relocation, each thing is just
Yeah,
gonna
every time we do
continuously
it.
keep you on the increased monitoring schedule. So it's unfortunate, but again, just one more thing that's slightly out of our control.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of those.
There is quite a few.
Such a catch-22. We're
Mhm.
doing the right thing by offering a rebate for the, and now it's biting us on this end.
So the other thing that we were talking about, similar to this, is the lead and copper inventory compliance. John and I have been working on this. This is just one of those things that seems to get put on the back burner. It just doesn't take as much priority as it should. And, the deadline's coming around quicker than we expect. So this is an EPA requirement that all water suppliers do a complete townwide analysis of every water service in town to prove what materials were used during construction and installation. There's a few ways to populate that report. The first and simplest start is to use the assessor's database, and based on age, you know the window that they're looking for, which is very similar to the ones that we picked for lead and copper. So we have a decent list for that. The next would be to use our plans of any of the water mains that we've replaced because they were aged or they were failing or anything. Unfortunately, that's only half of the information you have to put down. They want the homeowner's side as well, which typically we don't have access to. So that means we could prove that we replaced our section of the water main and the water services. We can't prove what's on the homeowner's side unless we actually physically get into the home and verify what's coming in the basement. That's kind of okay, is what they're telling us. But for the older sections of town, where we don't have plans on, and we know it needs to be replaced, they need us to verify in 3 locations what's there. The corp, the curb stop, and inside the house.
on.
Physically dig
Come on.
and find out what's there
In the middle
and
of
put
the
it on a
street.
map.
Wow.
Including on the homeowner side.
either side of the curb stop, and then physically inside the home to.
But we're not allowed to do that without the homeowner's permission, right?
When we install a new water service, we install the curb stop.
Right.
And the contractor or the residential person connects to that curb stop.
Right.
So when we dig down to repair a curb stop that may be leaking or to replace a curb stop rod, we can physically see what's on the other side of it, you know,
Okay.
even if it's just 3 or 4 inches. And
And you assume that doesn't change all the way into the house?
Well, that's the assumption you have to make.
Yeah.
right, which
And
we know
unusual.
it does happen.
It
quite a bit.
absolutely happens, but it's unusual.
So that's where we start getting into the problem. It's the amount of cost that's involved to do that, the disturbance to the roads in, you know, more than one location. And then, once you have that information, it has to be populated to a database that's accessible by all parties. That's where we need to get the engineers involved. We have to create basically a town-wide map showing what materials were found here, you know, if it's a problem material, if it's good based on age, and that is gonna have to be an actively populated map. The more and more we investigate, the more and more it has to be added to. So we're gonna need to.
And there's no like imaging technology, it's pretty much you gotta dig it out and look at it?
Yeah, there's no way of,
You can verify there's something there, but you can't tell what it is.
Yeah.
right, because we haven't invented that technology yet.
So if any of you guys have any ideas of how to invent that, you can get real rich real fast.
So we don't have a GIS data system for our infrastructure?
We have partial.
So the newest stuff, you can literally populate all that stuff and
Mhm.
identify every,
So we do have a program called Esri. It's ArcGIS that we use. We went out probably 15 years ago, if not more.
I'm
We
sure.
GIS'd all of our gate boxes and all of our hydrants at the time. We did not do curb stops because we didn't have a lot of the information.
Who would ever think you would need to do such a thing?
Yep. So we are actively working, we've been working each winter, sending the crews out, starting off with the alphabet streets, starting off in the A's, going to the B's, locating all the curb stops, getting a physical picture of it, and tire measurements to it. That's the first step, because our system's pretty archaic. We want to take that, eventually put it into a binder, so it'll be easy for reference, because we still use hard copies for everything, and then have a backup system on a shared drive or something, so in an emergency, very possible it could happen that you could be out one night marking the street for dig safe, and a lot of times you get there and they'll say, oh, it's pole 2320. Well, you get there and they want 4 poles marked out. So now you gotta come all the way back here to get the
Yeah.
other card information. So the long-term goal would be to be able to pull it up on the phone and have that information there.
Right.
To get there, it's gonna take quite a bit of work.
So that's a silly question, you should know the answer. You know, ductile iron pipe was used in, I don't know, we'll say 72 or something, and before that it was some other type of pipe. When did we change curb stops material? Do you know that?
It varied depending on projects.
I imagine Prescott would know, or somebody would know,
Mhm.
plumbing supply company, but what was the material before, I imagine it's all brass now?
It was brass and lead, and then it went to no lead, and I don't remember the time frame, but it was while I was working it.
That was
It's
5, 6 years ago?
Probably,
7
yeah,
years
I
ago?
was gonna say 10, but yeah.
Yep.
Wow, I should have known that, but I don't.
No, I
recall
mean,
it.
yep, that was a requirement to switch everything over. The other,
What's bizarre to me, and this is always, all your lead and copper samples have come back within the compliance of the 96%.
the 98% of form, yeah.
Yeah. What is the fever pitch of, if you're not getting the lead, if you're not getting the lead problems out there, what is the?
Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
No, I understand that, but I
That's
understand
why-
what they did was wrong. They went from a plant and they just decided, well, I'm gonna save some money and I'm just gonna dump it in the Flint River, and they just didn't treat it properly. That's where they went wrong, and they had lead lines, so they didn't have.
I'm
and I
just
get
telling you,
that, and
Flint, Michigan is the one who screwed it all up.
But I understand that, but we don't.
One example, and we all have to suffer.
But they had lead water mains.
Mhm.
We don't have lead water mains in this area.
I've never seen one.
I don't understand what we're trying to comply to.
So you've never found a lead water main in town, right? That town's not old enough.
Goosenecks.
It's not old enough, just
Right.
goosenecks.
Just
Yep.
goosenecks.
And one of the items that was in the original documents, it also said couplings had to be identified.
Wow.
And that kind of sparked a whole different thought process, because when repairs are made, typically you use a coupling.
Mhm.
Now, if they're trying to focus on, as Steven mentioned, when did the transition happen for the couplings when it was lead-free, that creates a whole nother level of concern of trying to find those. If a homeowner had a repair done on their property, which is more than likely because Norton doesn't require full replacement after a leak as other towns do, a coupling was used.
Sure.
How can you prove that? You're not gonna go dig up their front yard. We're not allowed to dig on private property, nor do we want to.
But that's what they're requiring us to do, to dig in 3 spots. I mean, to find out in 3 spots, at the corp, at the
Right.
curb, and inside the house.
Well,
They're gonna dig
At
for
the
the 2 of
corp,
that 3.
yeah, at the corp, we can get away with that. Typically, that's right on the property line. But if they're worried about the actual portion that's homeowner owned, from the corp into the foundation, there's nothing we can do about that. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
There's no way. It would bankrupt any town.
They're gonna bankrupt the towns just with what they're doing now.
Yep.
Never mind the PFAS bullshit.
It's all coming down at the same time. That's the biggest concern that John and I were talking about.
So I imagine there's protocols in place that when we do a repair job and we have an opportunity to gather this information, we now gather it,
Yes,
right?
correct.
Because in Randolph in the time, every time we had a water main break, we would add a valve,
Mhm.
because all our
They
valves
just
didn't
weren't
work.
there, yeah.
So
Or they
it was
didn't
an
work.
opportunity to add a
Yeah.
valve, or replace a fire hydrant or whatever else. We just
Right,
did it
right.
kind of like,
Yeah, it was just, it's the smart thing to do while you already got a hole.
hey,
Yeah, so with knowing all of this, obviously there's huge expenses that come along with it, not just from the manpower on our side, but also from the police details that we're gonna require, and the road
Yep.
paving and all that, so. We submitted our form reluctantly to Mass DEP, signing that we would comply with the requirement to have this inventory list populated by October 16th of this year. We can submit and have the majority of the town classified as unknown, as long as we're actively populating and solving the problem from there on out. The reason we did that is because we know there's gonna be a scope of work that's required from the engineers, and we don't have any of that to present to you yet for what the cost of that's gonna be. So, we're not gonna tell them we're not gonna do it. We're gonna do our best to do everything that they need and work towards, the common goal. But, it would make sense to me, and I know Tara and I had talked about it, and Ben as well, that maybe when we identify a few of these areas that we have concerns about, based on the fact that they fit the criteria, we don't have plans on them, they probably fall within that age group, or maybe we have old information that we did a repair and we remember what was there, that we target those mains first for replacement projects. If we're gonna spend any money, why don't we spend it
Makes
and
sense.
use
Yeah.
it the right way?
Yep.
well, it doesn't make any sense to dig up the road, identify the corporation stop, realize, our curb stop, realize it's wrong, and then backfill the thing without replacing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that logically doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Of course,
Steve, logic?
I'm just saying,
This,
I know, I used to yell at my engineers all the time about using common sense, I know, I know.
Right, so there's definitely some projections that you'll see from the engineers coming in the very near future for quite a few things. Obviously, the PFAS and, treatment process and removal is gonna be the first thing. This will probably follow right behind it as far as having some cost associated with it. We're gonna do everything we can on our side to populate most of this, but I'm sure we're gonna need assistance, from them, just to make sure that we can get it.
has the town doesn't have a GIS department, or are they even considering hiring a GIS person?
We've done all our GIS in-house. We shared,
Just so you know, and not to interrupt, but we had hired, we had gotten some people from Bridgewater State, and they did a ton of work for us for nothing, and it was all part of their learning stuff, so that might be something we can look into.
Yeah.
But they took maps, and they put them right on the GIS
Wow.
mapping,
Okay.
yeah. It was pretty slick.
Yeah.
But we worked with a GIS person that was dedicated
That's what
just
they
to
do.
that, and then they put us on the map, as it were.
awesome.
So it would be great if Norton didn't, consider doing something like that, because it would help everybody.
Yeah.
Fire,
Right.
the DPW,
Mhm.
as well as us.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So-
That was
Yeah.
from what school, Bridgewater?
Yep, yeah, we had students that come down for, God, a
So
month.
they obviously have a curriculum that has to do with that. I wonder if Wheaton does.
Yeah.
That would be a
Yeah.
good fit for
Didn't think about that.
something like that,
Yeah, yeah,
being in Norton.
Southeast.
or Southeast
Southeast,
Regional,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, we just happened
Actually,
to,
yeah.
I didn't look into the other schools,
Yeah.
if that was a possibility, but I know Bridgewater
All great
had
ideas.
some students that helped us out, that, well, I mean, it's just something that,
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Mhm. Awesome.
it didn't cost us anything. It was all part of that curriculum.
No, we're not opposed to paying for services if they're gonna provide us something that we absolutely need. And if we can train a few of the people and stuff that we don't know and fast track it that way, even better.
Yeah.
I'd really like to avoid wasting the time digging the streets. It just doesn't make sense.
That
That's
drives
all.
me
Yeah.
insane. That drives me insane. I know where you come from.
I mean, there are ways of digging a hole using
We have
vacuum.
the vac trailer. It's just, again, it's just a thought process
No, I
of
understand.
spending that
It's just
time
crazy,
and spending that money.
just-
We're
just
not gonna
dig a
replace it.
smaller hole.
Use a vacuum, basically a big vacuum cleaner, suck the
Mhm.
earth out to maintain a very small diameter.
Yeah, so you can just get in and load it without
Yeah.
Right.
digging up the whole thing. That makes
It's
sense.
really smart,
Yep.
as opposed to bringing a backhoe in and digging up the street.
Especially if you got utilities around where you can't get
Mhm.
a
No, it's
3-foot bucket in there.
Right,
when you-
right.
And I've seen
Yep.
it a few times in Mansfield. It really works really well, like Steve says, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if
And we've
they're,
got the tool.
if they're adamant about physically getting a visual inspection on these, we may need to look at either renting out or sourcing out a larger vac trailer, because what we have is just a small trailer mounted unit.
Yeah, that-
And it works great for doing a couple repairs here and there, but it doesn't hold
No, it doesn't hold
any
water.
volume
Right.
of material,
And it's
so,
not meant for that.
No. so that's,
If we get into having to do this, you're talking about, I mean, how many locations to have to do this to? Do we even have a number on that?
a ton.
Thousands.
Yeah, thousands, so
That's,
it just seems like it would take forever.
it baffles me, and hopefully they'll understand the amount of work that's involved.
I do think, though, that they're a little lenient when it comes to knowing that we're on it. We're, if you can tell them that, this is the course of action. They're unknown, but we are working on it, and if they're,
So they just
and I
don't
think
want you to be idle.
they'll have
not do
to
anything
be,
about it.
yeah, they don't want us to forget about it. And I get that, if the reg's there,
Yeah.
we gotta comply.
Exactly. So,
But it's just frustrating all around, though, certainly.
well, it looks like I overspent my welcome.
Wow.
Ah,
Okay, well, no motion to adjourn?
I don't know if Tara's still on asleep or not.
So, no, before.
I'm on.
Are you okay?
I am good. That's all I got. I'll go to sleep.
All right, then we'll go to, we're gonna go to the Wheaton request for abatement.
We did not get that.
We didn't get that?
We didn't get
Okay.
it. Okay, then.
Okay, then we'll go right into Weston and Sampson. We'll go with Tara, because, we love Tara. No offense.
Sorry, running that.
It's all right.
All right, so I do feel like Frank gave you guys a pretty thorough update on several of the topics that I was going to discuss. So we can go into more details, or if you have any questions. But our next steps with the PFAS. So we did submit the response to the NON as far as the long-term action plan yesterday. Got some feedback from DEP. Supplemented additional information today. So far, so good on that. And then our next steps for you guys is we're going to work through that alternatives analysis that we discussed. Really taking a hard look at the options for well 3, as well as the potential treatment overhead for the treatment plant itself for PFAS, and then iron and manganese potential treatment over at well 3 as well. So there's a lot going on there with that alternatives analysis. We discussed budgeting and some other factors with Frank today. It sounds like there's going to be some appropriation of funds at the next annual town meeting in May, so there'll be adjustments to that. We're also going to be looking into funding for, I think we might have not covered this fully at the last meeting, but looking with Mass DEP as far as funding design as well as construction for the actual PFAS methods that we select. So stay tuned. We'll be providing additional services over the next few months under the general engineering services budget now, and then as of the Maytown meeting or July 1, we'll be working on another contract for that. So we'll provide you with updates in the next few weeks on that. I don't know if you guys have any questions about what Frank went over, but we did talk about a lot there. The easiest option for, what you're going to probably see is setting up something at the treatment plant we talked about, but actually access is a concern with residents kind of driving back there. Certain towns have seen a few people, some towns have seen a little bit more. The majority of your system is being fed by the treatment plant and well 1, which have below the MCL PFAS and actually below EPA's proposed limits as well. So there's majority of the system is reduced PFAS levels, and it's just with well 3 gets turned on, and it may be over 20 as Frank went to that. So I just want to kind of reiterate the fact that the majority of the folks are going to be getting their water out of their spigots from the treatment plant. Were there any questions on the PFAS at all? I know there was a lot going on there, so I can just move on to the next topic. Okay, all right, great. So Frank kind of got into the LCR as well. We're just kind of waiting to see where his crew ends up wrapping up their portion of it, and then we'll help put together the mapping. We have all your water mains, hydrants and valves in the system. We've developed that over the years. Obviously, keep you an updated hydraulic model. I think the big issues here are just identifying a map that's due by October, so people can look up their addresses and see if it's unknown or known. It will be a long process. It's going to be several years out. EPA is going to require a certain percentage of repairs and removal of lead over the foreseeable future. There's funding being offered for assistance with that, so there's methods there. Luckily for Norton, there is a minimal lead assumed in the system, and predominantly what's come across is just a lead gooseneck. So you have areas of town where you're potentially known those locations are, and we're striking, South Worcester Street and East Hodges are the new project that we have going out to bid soon. That's an area where there's some known lead goosenecks. So already right off the bat, you're going to be eliminating some of those service lines. So that'll be a good update. And I think, as Frank said, we're going to start to target areas where it's unknown and overlap them with your replacement plan, which for the most part, those are areas of town that will be older, typically on the average anyway. So always good to get non-copper services out of the system if they're iron or anything anyway. So, that'll be on our plan over the next several years to kind of focus on those areas. We talked a little bit about the pH at the very beginning. This is a long time coming. We're really excited about getting onto, overdosed slow reduction in pH over the next several months, keeping an eye on that, and seeing the modifications at the plant, reducing addition of chlorine, and then hopefully seeing the immediate impact of THMs, which, as Frank also said, we still have some higher results over the last couple quarters, which will stick with you guys for a little while with the running annual average. But this is all moving in the right direction. The water department treatment folks are aware of exactly what needs to be sampled and tested. So we have a good game plan moving forward, and just need to kind of document that for DEP to confirm what we've all kind of known for a while, that this is all going to be a good step for THM and reduction, better water quality throughout the whole system. I think we've pretty much covered most of the items. There was really much else. We're going to be working through checking in with Mike Units a little bit on when we can get South Worcester Street out to bid. Through some of that. We have next week, we have a meeting with EPA to discuss the well 4 work, as well as potentially using that funding now to supplement future PFAS treatment. So we've got some new options now to spend money on, and we've already funded the wells 5 and 6. It'll be kind of converted into a match for EPA for this special earmark funding, and anything that we can get to reduce a future loan for whatever treatment system we come up with over the next year or so for the future long-term response to PFAS and EPA's new restrictions that are going to be implemented in the next couple of years. That'll be good to just, reduce your construction overall borrowing needs through the Auchincloss funding. So I think all in all, some good positive signs, and we'll be providing, as Frank said, some proposals for the PFAS over the next 6 months to a year, as well as the assistance for GIS. We actually, and Ryan can get into this probably in his projects, but under the Elm Street project, there is some funding for sewer GIS work. So we typically do update on our projects. We've got updates to the GIS that include White Street that we just completed, Pine Street, the work on Reservoir Street a few years back. So there's been updates to your GIS periodically that we've been keeping up with on our end. So and then the sewer is what we're focusing on under the Elm Street project. And then I think, Frank, I got a whole slew of random plans that you sent. We'll double check the GIS to see if these are in the system and make sure that those edits get updated as well. That's kind of about it, I think, on my end.
Okay, thanks, Tara.
Sarah?
Appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.
I don't have your name, I'm sorry.
I'm Ryan Henry.
Ryan, thanks for coming. All right, Ryan.
Ryan. That's my grandfather. I'll try and keep as condensed as Tara did. I know Steve, he doesn't like to.
I don't believe it.
I know he likes to create these crazy lists.
I did give them a copy of that.
Yep.
Yeah,
No,
we got
that's
it right here.
perfect. That's perfect. So yeah, just a quick update on a few of the projects that we've been working on in town. Obviously, the Elm Street project, we continue to make pretty significant progress on it. We developed a base map of what the conceptual sewer for the proposed sewer is going to look like. The main goal here is trying to show gravity sewer along Reservoir Street, gravity sewer along Elm Street, and then gravity sewer along Miller Terrace, with the main goal of providing sewer to the Reed property for hopefully further development down the road.
Do we have to do any upgrades to the pump station up above off of Reservoir Street? What's that, Holly?
So,
What is that?
Rumford Road.
Rumford Road.
Rumford.
Road. So, one of the things that we're looking at as part of the downstream capacity analysis is with these, with the pump station, where are we going to discharge to? Last week, or 2 weeks ago, we actually went out to Rumford Road and did some drawdown tests out there. We're still processing some of the water use data to kind of confirm what the remaining capacity of that station is. Main goal for Rumford Road is whether or not all of the properties that are going to be fronted by the gravity sewer can go to Rumford Road. Is there enough capacity at that pump station to take those properties along Reservoir Street? Getting all the properties to go to the Rumford Road is definitely not feasible based on the design flows that we have. So a couple different force main options that we're looking at are extending force main from one of the wherever the pump station ends up on either Elm Street, Miller Terrace, extending force main up to the Cobb Street pump station, which is a significant amount of force main. It's about 7,100 feet of force main. And then the alternative option is to connect into the existing 6-inch force main from the town center pump station over on Pine Street. So the downstream capacity analysis that we're doing at both of those stations kind of go hand in hand. We're trying to determine, where can we go with the force main, where can we discharge the potential flows coming from these properties. One of the things we're looking at doing on Elm Street and Reservoir Street are some geotechnical investigations, some subsurface boring investigations. We actually met with Jared last week, the highway superintendent, and he's given his blessing to do the work during the winter. As of right now, we're just trying to wait and see what the driller's schedule is going to be. Right now, I think it's estimated to be a few weeks out, so we're looking maybe mid-March for the borings to occur. For the pump station design, we're actually looking at 4 different sites, potential sites to place the pump station. Pump station site 1 is actually on a property that's owned by Wheaton College. Pump station site 2, 4, 3, and 4 are all on town-owned properties. Pump station site 2 is actually a land preservation site, so we actually have a meeting with the conservation agent tomorrow to discuss, if that's going to be where the pump station goes, what are the permitting, hurdles that we're going to have to go through for that. Pump station site 3 and 4, hydraulically, they're the least favorable hydraulically. Pump station site 3 at the end of Miller Terrace is actually going to be pretty deep if we end up putting it there. The gravity sewer ends up being about 20 feet deep, so your wet well is going to be even deeper than that to get the operating ranges you're going to need. And pump station site 4 over at Library Park think it ends up being about 18 feet deep, so you're still pretty deep on that area. But pump station sites 1 and 2, are the most favorable right now. You're looking at about 9 feet deep for gravity sewer along those. So hopefully we have more information once we meet with the conservation agent tomorrow on, whether or not it's going to be feasible enough to put it on one of those first 2 pump station sites.
Why the disparity in depth with the ones on Elm Street as opposed to the ones inside the property? So why is it 9 feet difference?
So
I'm
as
just
you-
curious, I know Waterville, I just saw it.
Yeah, so as you're approaching 123 East Main Street down here, the grades start to go up.
Okay,
So as you're going up this, you're essentially bucking grade, you're going down. With the gravity sewers, the grade goes up.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I hate when that happens.
yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, Library Park would be a good spot. I mean, it's town owned and there's probably plenty of space to put a pump station over
Okay.
there, but you're gonna be going pretty deep at that pump station. And same with Miller Terrace, and you're gonna turn on a
I
Miller
think there's
Terrace.
bedrock to grade there. What do you think?
It's bony over there.
Yeah.
Bony, right?
And that's one of the, hopeful things during the geotechnical investigations is what rock is out there, where is it, can we quantify it in order to get ahead
well,
of it?
didn't we put a new main in on Reservoir Street
No.
up that way?
Reservoir, we did,
Reservoir
not
we
on
did.
Elm,
Nah.
but there are.
No, I know, but I mean, so what kind of water main do we have on Elm?
AC.
AC.
So we replacing that too?
Yeah,
So we're gonna
Okay.
replace that during the
Okay.
sewer extension project as well. So-
Yeah, AC, that's again, some of the older pipes in town, so there
Right.
is some iron pipe services there that
Yep.
we've dealt with and had problems in the past, so providing this moves forward and we seem to look like we're gonna get town meeting support. I think we'll get board support because obviously the Reed and Barton property is
Yeah.
pretty significant to do
Didn't want
something
that.
with.
Right.
The only way that can happen is if utilities are brought to that point.
Okay,
The numbers, the cost for this is a big deal. We have 520,000, I believe is the number that we got for the design grant.
Yeah.
That's covered in its entirety.
Through the
That's what they're
MassWorks
working
grant.
on through the MassWorks. We also have 3.5 million that was awarded to Norton for the construction grant. So we would have to go to town meeting, ask for full funding with the possibility that a grant could be removed at any point in time. And that would come out to, I think the number was 8 point something.
8.6. So for the range of anticipated cost, it was on the low end, if we connect into the force main on Pine Street, it's about $7.4 million. If we extend force main all the way up to Cobb Street, it was $8.6 million. So,
So it's 8 million, pretty much. yes.
Yeah.
So huge numbers.
yeah.
Yeah.
That we'd be asking, obviously the public to approve.
Mhm.
With the possibility of having some of that covered with the grant
Exactly.
money.
Yeah, 3.5 million
Yeah.
would be.
Which is nothing to sneeze at, it's one of the.
No,
bigger-
there's definitely nothing
It's
to see there, we
definitely
just
one
still
of
gotta
the
get
bigger
them to agree to
awards.
spend $4 or $5 million bucks.
Correct.
Exactly.
much cost money.
That's different.
Yeah. So,
But this will be a dual upgrade, so we're focusing on the sewer as this project goes along, and it's called the Elm Street Sewer Improvement Project, but the water main has to be replaced as well,
Yeah.
including the water services to the property line.
mhm.
We've talked about opportunities to split the utility cost. Obviously, that water main replacement has a value. If we take that value out of this project, as if we were to be doing it separately, fund it from the water enterprise account, more than likely through a borrowing, it leaves additional monies for expenditures for the sewer department and less to borrow in as a whole number. So it obviously makes that grant look a little bit bigger as far as for the amount that
You
it's
know,
covering.
borrowing less goes further at town meeting too,
Exactly.
so.
We may have some money that we can reallocate from leftover projects that were expended and closed out. That might be able to also knock off a little bit, but you're still talking a significant borrowing, no matter how you look at it. So we definitely need town support to move the project through.
Okay.
In the worst possible thing, that it's not even the worst part, we could go through all of this effort to get it shot down at town meeting, but at least we didn't pay anything for the design grant.
Right,
Keep that in our
right.
pocket, we look at it later on, maybe there's other avenues and other participants that come in and are willing to throw a little bit more money at it, again, to make it a little bit more palatable for
Good.
the next town meeting that it would go to, so.
Right, good.
But, yeah, a ton of work behind the scenes. Do we also have the previous borings that were done for the water main?
We do, but they only go down 8 feet.
8 feet,
So they're very limited with what they show. So that's the purpose of the
of the additional.
borings that we're doing out there.
So we doing borings in where we're planning to put utilities or on the side of the street?
Where
Or-
we're planning to put the utilities, so it'll be within the street. So we'll go every 300 feet with borings with, potential probes in between each of them if we encounter rock at any of the soil borings. Just to give us a better idea of what we're looking at when we go to excavate out there. What does the profile of the rock look like if there's any out there? We want to know that ahead of time, so next steps with that, public outreach, we need to have some meetings with some of the key stakeholders, get some more information on the Reed and Barton property, what they're, planning to do out there, they're doing a ton of work, with regard to what's out there now, investigations, so we wanna, hopefully have a meeting with them and, figure out what's going on. And we are on the Board of Selectmen meeting, kinda just as an item to introduce the project. I think that's in early March.
I think it might be the first meeting in March that they have.
So we'll essentially present this project to them and kind of get a.
Should the commission go or
That
someone
was
from the
gonna be
commission?
asked, if
Yeah.
you guys were interested in going, we could definitely post it as a joint
Do a
meeting.
joint
I'm
meeting.
sure there's gonna be questions
We do
that might come around, and if you all were there, it would eliminate the possibility of a continuance.
Yeah.
I mean, this will be one of many meetings with multiple different boards trying to seek approval.
Yep.
But I think the more support that we have on our side,
I think you're right too
Definitely
about,
can't hurt.
with the Reed and Barton property being in play, we'll get board support from the town,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that goes a long way with the townspeople at town meeting, so.
Yeah. And again, the 3.5 million for the construction isn't anything to shake a stick
No.
at. I mean, it's one of the higher end grants that I've seen for a construction project,
Good.
so.
Good.
Yeah, we should play that up.
Yeah, and you wanna take
Yeah,
advantage
definitely.
of it, you play it up, as- eventually we're gonna do it anyway, eventually we're gonna be doing it.
no, there's a lot of work that went on behind the scenes back when Paul D. Giuseppe was here.
Yeah.
Working with Ryan and Steve and our guys here,
Yep.
to get that in play for the design. That was pushed through, then when Maria took over for Paul, she worked with all of us again, getting a construction grant pushed through, and unfortunately, neither of them are here, to thank them, but, their work didn't go unnoticed, to get us to where we are now.
Yeah, good.
Yep, so we'll hopefully we need to put a preliminary design report together, so at some point we'd like to have a work session just to, go over all the information and, be that real.
So what do
are
you
these?
need anything from us at this moment in time?
Not at the moment, no. It was just kind of an update as to, the amount of work that we're putting into this right now, so, and, there's plenty of meetings on the horizon. We had some meetings last week, we met here, went over the logistics of everything, so it's a lot. It's a lot moving forward, and we're making a lot of progress on it, so just keeping everybody apprised.
So obviously the survey's done, right?
Mhm.
And you obtained sill elevations for all the homes.
If we were able to pick up sill elevations and property
So is there
owners were
more
okay with it.
information you need to get in the field, and there's an opportunity to look in their houses to figure out? I mean, if you need to make a site visit,
It's true.
I don't know if you know how it works.
Yeah.
That's
It's
valid.
difficult, you need to know where there's plumbing is in order, how you're gonna hook the system up.
Yeah, to recommend the location, and you're damn right.
I also tell the story, I was in Lincoln, Maine, and I did that, so I was the person who was doing that, I liked the person doing it, can I check on your plumbing? Plumbing? We had outhouse, they had an outhouse, they were going from an outhouse to a sewer system,
Well,
they bypassed the septic tank.
It's quite the upgrade.
That's quite an upgrade.
Stumble across any of that.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, we'll take every opportunity we can to
just
gain
seems like,
access.
I know Western Sampson will be doing it,
Yeah.
but, you tag along and you
Oh,
get the
100%.
information.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically, if we're gonna get a sill shot, we'll try and find the closest sill elevation that we can, and we'll knock on the door, do our best to say, hey, can you let us just take one survey point on your property, and 50% of the time it works. 50% of the time they say, get out of here.
Yeah.
So you do what you can to get it. But, so for Holly Road, Norton, Knollwood Generators, I understand that the gas service was installed by the contractor. I think we're still waiting on the gas meter, and that's
Yeah,
essentially
Holly Road,
that's in the hands of the utility, the gas utility, so, I don't really have any updates on that one? I don't know if you know any more than I do on
No,
that.
same thing, still waiting. We've used all our contacts that we have and had no luck.
Mm-hmm.
So they were moving pretty quickly that time I gave you guys an update before. And I don't know if the weather shut them down or if they moved to another area, but we haven't seen them doing any work in town, so. We're back to square one with that. The contractor did install the gas service at Knollwood to the generator. I don't know if they're waiting on inspection or what to do for a startup on that. We haven't heard from them either.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
quite sure.
That's fine. There was going to be that closeout article for Cobb Street, but I was gonna deny that anyway,
Okay.
because that's not ready yet.
So everything at Cobb Street for phase one for the generator replacement is finished. But I guess one of the block heaters was leaking when they went to start it up. They replaced it and it's still leaking. We haven't released retainage yet. It essentially is going to be, it is a punch list item
It has to
at
be
this
fixed,
point,
right.
and they have to fix it. And regardless if we release the retainage, signed off on the payment application, they're still under warranty to fix it.
Sure.
So
I mean, the board can make their own
It's up to the
decision.
app.
I wouldn't sign off on it, but,
Well, if you don't sign on it, we probably won't sign
Yeah.
on it.
I mean, 3 times and it's still got the same issue.
Yeah.
It doesn't sit too well.
Nope.
Especially for the station. Now we're monitoring it on a regular basis because anytime it runs under load, it leaks. Last thing you want to do is have that line blow off while it's running, and lose that motor. No, it doesn't sit too well.
Right. So for Cobb Street Phase 2, pre-construction conference was held on the 9th. I believe right now they're going through some of the bypass pumping options, and it's been discussed that it's likely to be a change order with the I think it's a matter of putting a permanent bypass in now, is what they're thinking about, so that's still being.
Yeah, there's a lot, unfortunately, you guys don't know about that. So to do the bypass work in the wet well at Cobb Street, it requires access to the manhole in front of the station, which is in a travel lane. When that station was built 30-something years ago, there was no temporary bypass thought of, installed, or anything there. So you physically have to set pumps in the manhole to lift the wastewater coming from the Grove and from Great Woods out, and then you now had to find a new physical way to connect it to the force main to traverse the other 7,000 feet down the road, down Cobb Street. So in the basement of Cobb Street is where all the 3 pumps combined go into one 12-inch main, go through the wall, connect to the force main. The initial thought was to basically remove that 90-degree 12-inch elbow, put on a blind flange, have tubing and pumps come in and connect to that. It would work, it just, there's no benefit to doing it that way other than saving a little bit of money. So you still have an issue with traffic control in the street by having the pumps come out of the manhole, run these hoses across the ground to a large pump in the front yard. And now you talk about either blocking the road off for 3 to 4 weeks, police detail 24/7, that cost is huge.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at installing a permanent sleeve from below grade core into the manhole, have basically a sleeve or a pipe come across into our yard, so that, a temporary pump could be installed with hoses coming up, making the connections. That'll solve one aspect of it, getting it from the wet well, from the manhole, instead of going into the wet well, get into the yard where the pump would be. Still have the issue with connecting to the force main. At this point, it doesn't make sense to run hoses in and downstairs and do that connection when we could have a hot tap made with a valve and piping come off of that force main, basically exit the building prior to the first floor, come out into the side of the driveway, and actually have an actual connection there.
Yep.
With a valve or without, we haven't discussed if we really wanted 2 valves on it or not. But that would basically create a permanent bypass for that station. That was never there, probably should have been there. All of our new stations have one, in case you have an emergency and you need to do something. And
Then you just drop a pump in there, you don't have to close the road, connect it up, you're good to go. Yeah.
so it's obviously an additional cost because it wasn't something that was thought about originally. After the professionals come in and this is what they do, they're kind of scratching their head why there wasn't one there. And any efforts to install anything temporary, I don't like throwing that money away for something that could be done permanent if it's just a little bit more. So we're looking and waiting for a cost estimate to come from them. I think was 20,000 the number that was thrown around or something
I haven't heard of
originally.
the number, so I can't speak to
So
it.
it's a lot of money, but it's a little bit of money if you have another problem down the road and you don't have this setup already in place.
Well, we were just talking about $8 million projects, so 20 grand doesn't really seem like.
No, no.
After that conversation.
Right, I mean, you know, we obviously wished it would have been installed.
Yeah.
When that station was built, it was obviously never thought of and it wasn't working to the design. But I think now is the time to solve that problem.
That
You know,
sounds like a good
we've
upgrade
gone
to that.
30-something years, it was built in 1991, without doing any major rehabs or maintenance to it. You know, throwing an additional $20,000 at something so that you can easily control this again in the future, it makes no sense. Why
What is
wouldn't
the
it be done?
phase 2 project worth?
I don't have that number in front of me.
I don't think I have that number.
It's-
either.
I can't even think off the top of my head, I'm sorry. I can get it for you.
Yeah, it's not, I was curious. 320 or something?
157 sound about right? Original contract sum?
Yeah, I don't think it was crazy.
No. I think it was estimated at 157, so.
All right, well, get the paperwork and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
I just think it's foolish not to prepare others.
Well, the change order to put a temporary one is probably $15,000, so.
That's where I'm
Yeah.
at.
You know, so it doesn't really make any sense to do it any other way but right. Right?
I'm hoping that's the way you guys are thinking, that's the way I
Well,
think and look at things. I mean,
absolutely.
I haven't polled the other guys, but probably they
No,
think the same way.
100%, yeah.
That's just kind of a no-brainer, to be honest with you. for me.
Yeah, I agree.
you know, it's foolish it was designed the way it was. I'm sure there were good reasons behind it. It may have been cost driven
It's
back
probably
then.
because DEP required you to do such a thing.
Yeah. You can see
Who
that.
knows?
So it just gives opportunity in the future for, you know, additional maintenance to be done without trying to scramble and
I don't
come up with
remember ever
something.
putting in a temporary bypass in my pump station, so maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, the newer stations, the Center Street, which is Wheaton, has a bypass built in.
West Main Street. does
West
too.
End Street, 120 West Main
As I
Street has
said,
has a bypass.
the older
set up.
ones, I don't recall ever
Yeah.
putting one in.
Yeah,
Good.
So,
so that'll be coming, and we don't obviously like to see a change order right off the bat, but, you know, for something that appears that it should have been there in the first place, I think it might be warranted.
yeah, so that should be coming in soon, so. For peer reviews, the Mansfield Ave kind of goes hand in hand with that Rumford Road downstream capacity, and just because they're gonna be connecting into that sewer that's gonna be going to that. So the drawdown tests that were done go hand in hand with that review. The Zero Reservoir Street, we're looking at some alternative, or no, so Zero Reservoir Street, I apologize, so Zero Reservoir Street was the downstream capacity, Mansfield Ave was connecting into the existing town center, or West Main Street sewer on Mansfield Ave. So we're looking at some.
Two different.
Yeah.
Two different. So I mix
I
them right
do,
next to
yeah.
each other, so
Yeah.
it gets a little confusing.
If they had a real address, it'd be nice.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, all right.
So for the Mansfield Ave one, we're looking at some alternative options for them to consider in order to provide gravity sewer down Mansfield Ave. So hoping to get that wrapped up soon, get it to you for review. We can discuss how we want to approach them. And then Zero Reservoir Street, that's the one connecting into the proposed
Yep.
gravity sewer. So that goes hand in hand with the downstream capacity analysis. For the Norwood Public Schools, so at this point, we just have to finalize the memo on the sewer connection for them to determine how they're gonna connect the Yale School and the high school into the existing sewers. And Steve, we recently had a discussion with Wade Lazat, the Director of Facilities with the schools, regarding the middle school treatment facility and converting that treatment facility into a pumping station
Yep.
to connect into the existing Forest line. So there's a meeting on February 28th with the schools to go over the options for that and what it's gonna entail.
That's the one that we should go to, too. Is that the one we got information on? Did we get information on this one to go to attend that?
You might have gotten something.
I don't think we
Yeah.
did.
No?
Yeah.
You won't.
Maybe it
I'm
was just
special.
Steve.
I know. You asked, but.
Yeah, it might have just been Steve. I don't know, I'll have to look.
Right.
But that'll bring the new, I don't even know her title, I guess it'd be superintendent, up to speed on what we've done in the past leading up to where it is now, installing that 4-inch sewer sleeve in the old water main. Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Wade is aware, I don't know, how much they communicate about what's already in place and what's been done. As part of the I&I study, Weston and Sampson worked on these final connections for the Yale School and the high school, so that sewer line gets removed or is no longer in use on the new ball fields. That's still a bit of a concern. And changing their current holding tanks, they have chambered tanks, so they still pump solids from the Yale School, which is also the Yale and the high school, instead of putting that all to the municipal sewer system. It just doesn't make a lot of sense that upgrades aren't done, just to save them a little bit of money and leave everything to the town the way it was designed. So we just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and understands the amount of work that still has to be done on their side.
Yep.
And what opportunities they have here to change that existing facility to a pumping facility. There was mention about maybe looking at if Valentine Tool could connect
Yep.
to that.
He came and met.
A little bit of
Couple
stuff
meetings
has to
ago.
be worked out with the ownership of that force main once that school does change over and start using that.
Have you heard back from him since they were here?
I
Valentine?
have not, I know Steve has been in touch with him, I don't know if Ryan's been in touch with
I
him.
haven't.
So that's all.
They were waiting on the results of some test, I think. They were. Just wondering if they.
Yeah, we just gotta be careful about allowing people to tie into what's essentially a private line.
Yeah.
Whether it be via a pump system or via an actual connection to it. But not everybody would have the same access to it, so.
I mean, does the school want to have that facility anymore? I thought they wanted to get out of the business.
They wanna get out of the wastewater, business altogether. So, to do that, the assumption would be made that they'd want the town to take over that if they converted it from a treatment facility to a pump station. To do that, it has to be worth the sewer department's benefit to do it, so it means it would have to be oversized so that it could take additional capacity.
Yep, future.
And then we could look at upgrading that main so that others fronted by it could connect, or we could connect people to it and use it as a force main to bring there and gravity out. There's a lot of unknowns. We just don't want to get into a situation where there's no benefit to the sewer department for taking it over, doing the upkeep and maintenance on it when we can't physically connect anybody to it other than the
Right.
schools. So it's got to work in everybody's favor.
Yep.
And that's what the meeting is on. That's what we're discussing.
Sounds good.
Okay, good. Thanks, Ryan.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
This is a much more comprehensive agenda than Steve provided.
I figured.
I just always put that out to somebody.
He decided to go on vacation.
Now expect this quality every meeting.
Very well done.
Didn't want to set the bar too high.
Well, do we have anything else that we need to discuss?
A quick question. You guys probably got this too. I got a Norton alert that Hodges Street is closed down from a culvert collapse.
Correct.
Did that affect any of our stuff at all, or is it?
Nope, we have no infrastructure down there.
Okay.
It's, if you leave here, Dean Street, take a right on Hodges, it's all the way in the back corner of our property where the
Yeah.
town leaf dump is there. And the heavy rains compromised it. And that is still a heavy flowing
Yeah.
stream, so once it.
All right, I didn't know if we had anything in it that would.
Does that affect
Impacted
any of the
by
water
that,
back
so.
here, everything? Is that water filtered that way?
It goes the other way.
Oh, okay.
So let me know when it stops raining.
I will keep you in mind.
Okay,
I'm sure
good,
some
thank you.
people in Plainville would
Take
like
the
to know that
rain and
too.
not the snow.
I don't know, I'd rather have the snow. It goes into the ground a little slower.
When's the next meeting?
That's excellent choice. We're gonna look at right now, Steve.
I could look it up myself, but
And just so you guys know, we're still working on finalizing the articles for town meeting. We have quite a few things that we're trying to shuffle and reallocate some funds. Brooke's been working tirelessly finding monies that were left over in some very old
Get the
accounts
12th.
that we wanted to clean up the books on again, as we did probably 3 or 4 years ago. Any of that money, depending on the language of the original article, is easy to reallocate, some of it's not. So we're trying to get all that language together and and clean.
Do we have a
it up.
date for town meeting yet?
I believe it's May 13th.
May 13th?
So I got March 12th.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I
that's what it
have.
sounds like.
So good?
Tuesday, March 12th?
Okay.
So on the thing you sent us
Mhm.
regarding, then, so you sent it to us, but they're not ready to, why can't we vote on it tonight?
I don't have a hard copy. I
Okay.
haven't seen the hard copy yet. So
Okay.
the electronic version was given to me. I always require a hard copy, just so we can see it in house.
So they'll be here next meeting then, too.
I have the hard copy here. If you wanna look at it.
No, I think that's for something else. What's that for?
Well, this came in a while ago, didn't it?
Oh, that's for the plans. Yeah, that's different. No,
Yeah.
two different things.
This is the one, this is the
Never
one
mind.
Steve's talking about?
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
So it's not like they didn't know that they were supposed to submit this stuff?
No, they do.
Okay.
I think they were still working through some other boards after they come to us, just to show that we had given them approval.
Yep.
And I had reached out to them, because I hadn't heard from them in a while, which is uncommon. They were one of those ones that, you know, every couple of weeks you hear from them, and they finally submitted that. I said, when you get a full hard copy set, I'll make sure we look at it here, make sure there's nothing that's missed, because the small stuff, and even online, I just don't like relying on that. I'd rather have a hard copy print,
Yeah,
and
I
let
agree.
everybody,
It's easy to look at.
you know, get an eye on it.
It's this size, it's always something you miss.
Yeah,
To me,
exactly.
it's
And then when you blow it up
too-
on the computer,
too
you can't
busy.
see plenty good of
Too
it.
busy.
Yep.
Moving around.
The only other
And,
question I had in this is the distance between the two
You can't-
sites. I don't know if they actually stipulate the length of the 6-inch line.
I don't know, but I will look at it.
That was my only real question I had in that. Because they broke it, so you don't know how.
Yeah, you can't measure it anyway,
Yeah.
yep.
I don't think it was the locus on it. Well, there is, but
It's tiny.
kind of small. Yeah, you know, it's,
I mean, as far as projects go, that one was pretty easy. We basically kind of worked with them a little bit, told them what we wanted, they altered their plans, and it's been, you know, kind of very simple, wash your hands of it. We got the fire department involved, as we typically do, to verify there were no concerns about the hydrant placement. We explained why we wanted that additional one at the street, you know, to bring Dean Street into compliance. And it'll actually be on the side of the road where the majority of the hydrants are not. So that's a major benefit for them. They don't have to worry about running something across the road and closing that road down.
Yep.
So, seemed like everything fell in line with it, so now it's just a formality basically to get your approval and get a signature, and then we'll find out when they're doing construction.
All right.
Sounds good.
and the other development that we gave him permission to do he got his street in?
And doing this?
Balfour Farms, you mean?
The streets, that street is in. He was going to ask for the town to basically accept half of that project because half of it is done. I personally recommended against accepting the road because it's not done to a standard where we can do a walkthrough. There's a binder course of pavement down, some of the gate valves are paved over. Although we typically would assume that they're open and open all the way, because we went through and we did a pressure test. Until we can do a final walkthrough and physically get on each and every one of them, you know, we're not just gonna assume that it's okay. I think the highway department feels the same way about the binder course. You know, there's no way you can approve that, still knowing that you have 40 or 22 houses that need to be constructed.
Right.
Bounded and everything else, they put all the, really? Okay.
So there's still a lot of work that would need to be done as long as the town holds true to its previous requirements for a road to be accepted. So,
Good.
All right. Well,
Good to go.
all right, Jim.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, everybody.